Hello, my viewers. Welcome to Hugar Social Academy. Let us learn about India from 6th to 14th century. In my previous video, we have learnt about the Rajput dynasty ruled in North India and their contribution. Let us continue our topic with karkotas of Kashmir from 625 to 855. You can see in the pic about Karkota Empire, which has been stretched from the Afghanistan to the present Bihar to West Bengal. So northern part of India, which has been ruled by Karkotas. Karkota dynasty was founded by Raj Durlabh Vardhana in 625 CE, Common Era. Raj Durlabha Vardhana's son Durlabha Bakka was having three sons. Chandrapedda, known as Vajraditya, Tarapedda, known as Udyaditya, and Muktapedda, known as Lalitaditya. So Raj Durlabha Vardhana was having three sons. Among those three, most important ruler was Lalitaditya Muktapedda 724 to 760 CE. Lalitaditya. Lalitaditya was born brave, courageous, and ambitious. When we look after his conquest, his expansion of his empire, we see he has defeated to many number of empires as well as the rulers of that empire. He defeated Yashovarma of Kanauj. He laid his supremacy over Kabul by defeating the Shahi dynasty. He developed a very friendly relationship with Tang kings of China. Now, when we say about friendly relationship, it's regarding development of a good diplomatic relationship. We can see that even he had a diplomatic relationship with Vindhyachal. He expanded up to Turkey, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, as well as Kabul in the sense present Afghanistan. So Lalit Aditya's conquest, which shows that he has expanded his empire from the Turkey to up to the present India. If you look up after the contribution of art, so we can understand that during their span of here it is about Karkotas. In 230 years, Karkota kingdom followed the principles of religious harmony. When we say religious harmony, where it shows that during this time in his empire, all the people belonging to the different religion were having a good brotherhood. Shaiva Siddhanta was followed. Tarika and Kaula traditions of Shiva Sutras were being developed during this period. Tarika and Kaula. Now here in this we can understand what type of Tarika as well as Kaula tradition was being followed. This is a Shiv Sutra. Now this Shiv Sutra was written by Vasugupta. He was a great poet. Abhinava Gupta belonged to this period. Shiva Sutra was written by Vasugupta and a great poet called Abhinava Gupta also during this period. You can see in the pic that Parapara, Para as well as Apara. After the end of the Kakotyas, Solankes, or overall Rajputs, we understood about the Karkotas of Kashmir. Let us little bit understand more about after the Karkotas or the king after Lalitaditya, those all who kings who came, they were not too powerful. So the dynasty met its downfall. Slow by slow, we see that there was an end of this dynasty, which gave birth to the Afghan invaders. Alpatagin, the Turkish slave who established an independent kingdom at Ghajni. Mohammad Ghajini, who entered into India or invaded India 17 times and looted huge amount of wealth from the country called as India. If we talk about Muhammad Ghajni achievement, we can get to know that he defeated the Multan king Raja Jayapala, Bhimapala, and Chandela king Raja Tirlochanapala. Even attacked on Nagarkote, Thaneshwar, Gwalior, as well as the Ujjain cities. So Muhammad Ghazni, whose period is from 1997 to the period of 1030, we see that he entered into India for near about 17 times. Muhammad Ghazni, who attacked on the famous Somnath temple of Gujarat with a huge army and destroyed the Shivalinga in 1025 C. So we can say that throughout the history of the Muhammad Ghazni, if we talk about India, so he entered into India only keeping in the mind of loot, destroy, or to create a disturbance of the peace living people in the country called India. So in the pic you can see that the Somnath temple, presently Gujarat. Al-Biruni, who wrote the famous Tariq-ul-Hind, who speaks about Indian lifestyle and knowledge, have been discussed in this work called as Tariq-ul-Hind. After Muhammad Ghajni, we see that Gouri, whose period begins from 1149 to 1206. Muhammad Gouri, his achievements, the progress, or we can say the expansion of his empire. We see that Mohammed Gouri started his inventions by laying siege to Multan in India. Moreover, he attacked Anilwada of Gujarat. He invaded Peshawar part of Punjab. He fought with Prithviraj Chauhan in first and second battle of Tehran, which was fought in 1191, the first battle of Tehran, and the second battle of Tehran fought in 1192, where in the first battle of Tehran, Prithviraj Chauhan was victorious. After him, after the Muhammad Ghori, Qutbuddin Aibak, a trusted servant, Ghulam, was appointed to look after his administration in India. So which shows that nor Muhammad Ghazni nor Muhammad Ghori stayed in the country called as India. So the main clear intention of these people were to loot the treasury of the country called as India. But after Muhammad Ghori, we see that Muhammad Ghori, who too didn't remain in India, which made that Qutbuddin Aibak, a trusted servant of the Muhammad Ghori, was appointed to look after his administration. From this onwards, we see that the Delhi Sultanate begins, which begins from 1206 to 1526. 1526 is the period of the birth of one more new dynasty in the country called India, called Mughal dynasty. So, in the Delhi Sultanate period, we can get to know that Ghulam, Khilji, Tughlaq, Sayyid, and Lodi dynasty ruled over the country called India. Among that, first one is Ghulam dynasty, which began from 1206 to 1290 CE, Common Era. Qutbuddin Aibak, who continued his rule in India, his successors, means after him who came, they were all also the slaves were been there. The dynasty came to be known as Ghulam dynasty. So due to the reason called as a slave, Ghulam, these are the people who could not able to run according to their own way. They have to totally depend on their owner. So Qutbuddin Aibak, he was also a Ghulam. So and his successor who came, they were also the Ghulam of one after one, next, which made what it is that this dynasty was being called as a Ghulam dynasty. Qutbuddin Aibak, whose period from 1206 to 1210. What we see is achievements when we talk about achievements of Qutbuddin Aibak. He belongs to the Turkish dynasty of Afghanistan. He was sold to Khaji of Nishapur. So he was been sold. He was a good in archery, horse riding, as well as warfare. So the governor of Ghajini, called Mohammad Gouri, who brought him as a slave, who observed, was attracted by the bravery of Qutbuddin Aibak. After Gauri, he becomes the successor in northern part of India or North India, who ruled as a independent king. Who ruled as a independent king. He was not. He declared himself. He didn't ruled under the hands of Muhammad Gouri. Qutb bin Aibak, who married the daughter of Tajuddin Yaldoj. There were the scholars, whom we call scholars, the one who is good, who is perfect in one particular subject, who is having the thorough knowledge of that particular subject. So there were scholars, a work called Tazul Masib, which gives a brief information about Qutbuddin Aibak. We can see that during the time of Qutbuddin Aibak, a great monuments were being constructed called as Quwat ul Islam Mosque in 1193 Common Era and Qutub Minar in 1199 Common Era. It was during the time of Qutbuddin Aibak. Very after him, we see that a next slave of Aibak, Qutbuddin Aibak, called Iltamash, who continues his rule from 1211 to 1236 CE, Common Era. He was a slave of Aibak. He was an administrator at Gwalior and later become Aibak's successor. He was an administrator. So he was administrator, one who look after the area. Okay, so everything was under his hand. So he was administrator at Gwalior, who later become the successor of the Aibak. If we look about or if we talk about his achievements, the Ghazni king Tajuddin Yaldoj and Sindh province Nasruddin Kabja, who the Ghazi king Tajuddin Yaldoj and Sindh province king called Nasruddin Kabja, who revolted against him but could not able to defeat Iltamash. In another side, we see that Iltamash, who conquered Ranthambore, Mondra, Gwalior, Bisla, Ajmer, Benares, as well as the Kannauj. So, wide empire of Iltamash we see after the Qutbuddin Aibak. So, Iltamash, who laid down his supremacy, whose power on these number of areas. When we look after his administration, the way he run the kingdom, so to have a proper systematic way of running of administration, he divided his kingdom into provinces, which were called as Ikta. And to look after this Ikta provinces, he appointed the officers who were called as Iktadars. So Iktadars used to look after the province called as Ikta. Moreover, even he appointed a group of 40 soldiers to advise him in any of the matters of related to administration or giving any sort of justice. So 40 soldiers who used to guide him in each and every activity of administration or running of the empire. So the prime ministers were there, judges were there, who were nothing but advisor to the home to the sultan. And Iltamash during his time he brought up gold and silver coins into circulation also. So during the time of Iltamash, we can see that in the market there were the gold as well as the silver coin circulation was there. And Qutub Minar, which was started during the time of Qutbuddin Aibak, was being completed by his slave called as Iltamash. So during the time of Iltamash, he completed his mentor incomplete work called as Qutub Minar. Very next, we see that Razia Sultana, whose period begins from 1236 period to 1240. Razia Sultana, who ascended the throne of Delhi, who sat on the throne of Delhi. So she was the first woman to ascend the throne of Delhi. So she got a title called Sultana. Now she used to being as a leader, being as a queen of the Delhi. Now she participated in the military activities by wearing men's dress. So it shows a lot of courage of a lady who sits on the throne and dresses herself as a man to create his her power throughout the empire. So she expanded her kingdom from Sindh to the Bengal. Anyways, of her administration, which was we can say that which was not accepted by many of the provincial officers, they decided to revolt against her, and they did it also, which caused what it is that she was being killed by the provincial officers who didn't like the rule of Rajia Sultana. Very next, we see that Ghiyasuddin Balban, who comes to the power from the 1266 period to 1287 period. He came after the death of Nasruddin Muhammad, who was a son of Iltamash. So Nasruddin Muhammad, who was a son of Iltamash, who was not having male hair. So who was not having hair? Here we should clearly understand that Nasruddin Muhammad was not having a male hair. So after death of Nasruddin Muhammad, Ghiyasuddin Balban starts his power from the 1266 period to 1287 period. See, in his administration, if we look over, he was appointed as Amir a Shikar, the leader. So he was being appointed as a leader. So he controlled the disloyal Turkish Sardars. Now, disloyal, when we say it means shows what it is that there were some internal enemies were there who were trying to destroy the supremacy. So he controlled the disloyal Turkish Sardars. He used to wear ostentatious, which means noticeable in a way that is intent to impress the other people. To impress the other people, he used to wear different forms of the dresses. He declared himself as a representative of the god and brought absolute monarchy system. See, soon after becoming a leader, Ghiyasuddin Balban, right, who brought an absolute monarchy system. Now, a monarchy which refers to a country that is governed by the king or queen. He reconstructed his army. He took back the land from those who did not pay service tax for the land they had received as a Jagir. Jagir refers to gift. Now, very interesting it is. First of all, he makes his army and he takes those land which were been given in the form of gift. And why they have been taken back? It's because if they are unable to pay the service tax. Another side, we see that Ghiyasuddin Balban, the Sultan of Delhi, we see he died of a broken heart in 1287 after the death of his eldest son, Muhammad. Now, here, Ghiyasuddin Balban, the Sultan of Delhi, he dies because he was quite very upset by the death of his eldest son called as Muhammad in the battle against the Mongols. So Balban was deeply grieved and never fully recovered from this loss. So which made him too pained that he lost his life. After the decline of Balban, the queen Kaikobad, she was assassinated by his minister. So the minister killed the Sultan, and the death of that it was end of the dynasty called as a slave dynasty. In this way, we see that in the slave dynasty, which begins from the 1206 under the leadership of Qutbuddin Aibak, continues with the Iltamash, after Iltamash, which was continued by Rajia Sultana, and after Rajia Sultana, which was continued by Ghiyasuddin Balban. After this, now one more new dynasty which comes to the power. Let us look over a chart. Qutbuddin Aibak, then Iltamash, then Rajia Sultana, and then Ghiyasuddin Balban. So these all were the rulers of the dynasty called as a slave dynasty. After him, there was what we see that after the end of the dynasty, slave dynasty, one more new dynasty comes into the power. The dynasty was called as a Khilji dynasty from the period of 1290 to the period of 1320. It was established by Jalaluddin. Now, he was a soft spoken person and merciful he was. So, soft natured person he was. But we see that a ruler called Jalaluddin Khilji, who ruled during the period of 1290 to the period of 1296 Common Era, Jalaluddin Khilji, was the founder of this Khilji dynasty, which ruled the Delhi Sultanate from 1290 to the period of 1320. So, near about 30 years. Jalaluddin, who ascended the throne at the age of 70. So, when he was at the age of 70, almost at the old age, he became the emperor and sat on the throne of Delhi and ruled for near about 6 years before he was being assassinated by his nephew Alauddin Khilji. So, internal, his own relative, his nephew called Alauddin Khilji, who kills the mentor called Jalaluddin. And from there onwards, we see the rule of Alauddin Khilji from the period of 1296 to the period of 1306. You can see in the pic of Alauddin Khilji. Now, and next to this, at the right side, you are having a map where which shows that Khilji Sultanate was quite very expanded from the northern part to the central part of India and to up to the southern part, in the sense up to the Maharashtra. Alauddin Khilji, who served as the governor and the commander, who looted a vast wealth from Malwa, Bhilsa, and Devgiri. He killed his own mentor, and this mentor, who is this? He is Jalaluddin, and declared himself as a Sultan of the Delhi. His achievements part, if we talk, see a great fight. He stopped the Mongols. Waghela dynasty kings were being defeated. Rajput king Karnadeva II, great ruler he was also. Ratambor, Amir Deva, and Raja Bhim Singh of Chittor, as well as we see that in the southern part of India, Alauddin Khilji commander called Malik Kafur, who invaded in the south and looted the rich wealth from the temples. So from the north to the south, we see the achievements of Alauddin Khilji. He looted the wealth of Devgiri, Warangal, Dwar Samudra, and Madurai. His third son, called Qutbuddin Mubarak, who ruled for 4 years and was killed by a soldier, Khusro. See, his third son, Qutbuddin Mubarak, after him, who ruled for near about 4 years, was killed by the soldier called Khusro. Later, Ghazi Malik killed Khusro and established Tughlaq dynasty. See, one after one, they are being assassinated. After Alauddin Khilji, who's his son, third son, Qutbuddin Mubarak, who ruled for 4 years, but he was killed by a soldier called Khusro, and later Ghazi Malik, who killed Khusro and established the new dynasty called as Tughlaq dynasty. We'll talk about him, about Tughlaq dynasty in our next part. Now, if you look back, or if you look about administrative reforms, then we get to know that he abolished religious endowments. Now, what is this endowment means? It means the act of giving money, gifts, land, as well as a subsidy. These all were being abolished. Abolished in the sense it was ended, it was stopped. He had a good intelligence network. Moreover, in his empire, he totally ended consumption of alcohol, drugs, as well as gambling. Moreover, even he banned on his lieutenants that they can't join the social gathering, their socialization with the public, and the intercaste marriages. So these all some specific things were being there which were being banned by Alauddin Khilji. If you talk about military reforms, we see that Wazir, who used to look after the salary of soldiers, so we can say him as an accountant called Wazir. So he used to look after the salaries regarding training appointment, who should be there, regarding horses, regarding arms, regarding ammunition, plus moreover records of soldiers, how many horses, their horses, which was called as a hulia system. So maintaining of a records of soldiers as well as horses were called as a hulia system. And he built forts at strategic places. Now, built forts at strategic places, which are most important places, it's because every king tried his best to save himself from the enemies to himself as well as his empire. So he built a forts also, Kote. Another side, economic reforms, if we talk, he fixed the price of essential commodities, right? So like pulses were there, cereals were there, edible oil, sugar, cloth. These are the some of the things which are commonly used in the houses. So which are very very essential, they all prices were being fixed, that to on a minimum profit, so that everyone can have uh, get a good sufficient amount of food in a proper price. He directed the traders who are nothing but, we can in a simple word we call them as a merchants, who used to supply the goods from one place to the another place. So the traders were instructed that you can't sell the products at your own prices, so at a controlled rates you are going to sell the goods. And he appointed a higher officer called Sahana a Mandi to control. An officer was been appointed called as a Sanae Mandi. So these were all were the reforms, economic reforms which were being brought up. So military reforms, economic reforms, as well as if we talk about administrative reforms and his achievements, we can get to know that Alauddin Khilji and the rest of the emperors who came, they played a major role in establishing the supremacy from the northern to the part of southern part. In our next session, we are going to learn about Tughlaq dynasty, which began from the 1320 to the period of 1399. So, in our next session, let us understand about the rest part of the chapter, And be tuned with the Hogar Social Academy, and let me know any more clarification regarding the chapter from the 6th century to the 14th century, and make others to be the part of Hogar Social Academy. So let us meet in our next session.